Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. With whatever time of day it is where you are, I say to you, good morning. I just welcome you in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. May the Son of God arise with healing in his wings. May he bless you. May he visit your home, bless you, and do you good. It is my privilege to be hosting these sessions. I'm Christopher Panther, and it would not be the same without you here to share these moments with as we learn what the Lord is saying to us through the Word of God. It would not be the same without you. Um, you could just imagine that if nobody else came on, it would be empty. It would be a lonely place. But guess what? We are here together. And most importantly, the Lord Jesus is here with us. And it is because of his grace why we have been able to, these 86 previous weeks, today will be the 87th week of looking at the book of Genesis. I certainly never knew that we would be going so in depth, have gone so long in it. But, God is doing his work, and by his grace, the recordings are there for persons to utilize as they get a better understanding of the book of Genesis. So, again, I welcome all of you. I welcome you on behalf of the Lord Jesus Christ, as I said, and I welcome you also on behalf of my wife, Austin, who is in the background helping to make things happen. For the persons who are on for the first time, I welcome you on behalf of all the other participants who are not new. We always appreciate having new persons on. And feel free, of course, to ask questions. Just raise your hands and we will take questions. And you can feel free to, join parts of the discussion when the opportunity presents itself. All right, so welcome again, everyone, in the name of Jesus. Amen. So we are going to be moving on to Genesis chapter 49 today. We are almost at the end of the book of Genesis. We have only 2 chapters to go, which is chapter 49, which we're going to start and hopefully finish today. And then we have got chapter 50, and that will be it for the book of Genesis, at least this particular study. All right. But before we go to read Genesis chapter 49, as is our custom, and then come back over to go through it in detail, we're just going to have a quick recap for the benefit of those who may not have been on, or just, generally our benefit as we prepare ourselves and for continuity purposes so that we can follow along quite easily in the lessons. So what we learned last week was that chapter 48 is a continuation from chapter 46. All right. Now in chapter 46, we were told that when Jacob was leaving Canaan to go down to Egypt to Joseph and to Pharaoh, he stopped at Beersheba. He asked the Lord what he should do. The Lord told him that he should go to Egypt. And then when he had left, he sent word through Judah to go to Joseph and tell him that he's to meet him in Goshen. And then we are told that they met in Goshen and that they hugged and cried. But we were not given much detail about, those things. From there, we were told that he was introduced to Pharaoh. The brothers were introduced to Pharaoh, and they were settled in Goshen. But we did not get anything more on the meeting that took place then. Genesis chapter 48 gives us that detail, right, about what transpired at that first meeting of Joseph with his father. And so from that, we learned in Genesis 48 that the person that we are reading here that says that one told Joseph, behold, your father is sick, is Judah, because we were told in chapter 46 that Jacob sent Judah to Joseph, right? Now, what we were not told also in chapter 46 is that when that it was his father was sick, And the message was to tell him to hurry and come and meet him because he's not feeling well. Genesis chapter 48 gives us that detail. Another piece of detail that we were not given in chapter 46 is that Joseph had carried his two sons. Genesis chapter 48 verse 1 tells us that when Judah came and told Joseph that his father was sick, he took his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, and he went down with them. Now we also learned, as we have been learning, to read the Bible, because this now is Bible study is not about just a presentation of what God has been revealing, but it is also trying to teach you how to read the Bible. So what I'm doing is trying to impart to you what God has imparted to me. Because I said a couple of weeks ago that, these several months that we have been together, some persons over the last 4 years may say, boy, I've been teaching. But the fact of the matter is that I have been taught, right? And as I am being taught, I teach what I have been taught, because you cannot teach something that you don't have yourself. You cannot impart something that you don't have yourself, right? And so I'm just able to impart what God has bestowed and deposited in me. Now, what we have been learning, one of the things we have been learning is the order in which things are presented. So, for example, in verse 1 of chapter 48, we saw Manasseh and Ephraim being taken down to meet Jacob. And then by verse 5, we see them being referred to now as Ephraim and Manasseh. So there has been a switch. There has been a promotion of Ephraim over Manasseh. But that detail of that promotion is not given to us until verse 20. This is where we are told that Jacob blessed them, Ephraim and Manasseh, that day, and he set Ephraim over Manasseh. Right? So that is what we had learned. Also, we learned from verses 5 and 6 that when Jacob laid claim to Ephraim and Manasseh, it seemed to have caught Joseph by surprise. Right? And he may have, and this, of course, is not explicitly stated in the Bible, but some of this, as I told you, this is what the understanding that I've been given. In other words, I could say this is what has been revealed. And some of it is just, to me, common sense, how things flow. Right? So we found that Jacob laid claim to Ephraim and Manasseh. Joseph may have objected or questioned it, because now that his father has laid claim to his two sons, his bloodline, he doesn't have anybody to carry on his bloodline by his name, because his father is not just claiming them. He says, let my name be named on them. In other words, they are to be regarded as my sons in the space of Reuben and Simeon. Right? And Joseph may have said, hey, daddy, what about me now? Then who's going to carry on my name? Which is where verse 6 comes in, where his father told him, you can have more children. You are young. Right? That's how verse 6 comes in. And then verse 7 comes in now, where Jacob is using that to console Joseph by telling him that, look here, you may not have expected to lose the boys like this. I also did not expect to lose your mother. Right? So he's now sharing with him an experience of him losing something that was important to him, right? Which was Joseph's mother. And that's how we get this verse coming in, verse 7, that explains to Joseph, was meant to console Joseph that, look here, sometimes for the family, to do what is necessary for the family, you have got to give up something. I had to give up Rachel, of course. She died, but I had Benjamin, I had you, I had the family to look about. And so what did I do? I had to move on, right? I just had to move on. And so that is, where we had pretty much left off. And what we found was that after he blessed them, after he blessed the boys, it comes back and picks up where it had left off in chapter 47, right? Which was to say that, let me just quickly hop around there. Right. Round about verse 28. Right? No, 29 to 31, sorry. Where Jacob had called Joseph and told him that he was going to die. So we found that that conversation took place. And then now we were being told things that had happened earlier in his 17 years, the start of the 17 years in Egypt. And then, as you can see, down here, it comes back and picks up where that conversation was left off in chapter 47, right? And it says, and Israel said to Joseph, behold, I die. So it goes right back to there. And that's where now we're going to pick up and continue the conversation about his approaching death and the things that took place there. So we're just going to read this and then go straight into Genesis chapter 49. And Israel said unto Joseph, behold, I die, but God shall be with you and bring you again unto the land of your fathers. Moreover, I have given to thee one portion above thy brethren, which I took out of the hand of the Amorite with my sword and with my bow. And Jacob called unto his sons and said, gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. Gather yourselves together, and hear, ye sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel your father. Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity and the excellency of power. Unstable as water, thou shalt not excel, because thou wentest up to thy father's bed, then defilest thou it. He went up to my couch. Simeon and Levi are brethren. Instruments of cruelty are in their habitations. O my soul, come not thou into their secret, unto their assembly, mine honor, be not thou united. For in their anger they slew a man, and in their self-will they digged down a wall. Cursed be their anger, for it was fierce, and their wrath, for it was cruel. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. Verse 8. Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies. Thy father's children shall bow down before thee. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art gone up. He stooped down. He crouched as a lion, as an old lion. Who shall rouse him up? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet until Shiloh come. And unto him shall the gathering of the people be, binding his foal unto the vine, and his ass's colt unto the choice vine. He washed his garments in wine, and his clothes in the blood of grapes. His eyes shall be red with wine, and his teeth white with milk. Verse 13. Zebulun shall dwell at the haven of the sea, and he shall be for an haven of ships, and his border shall be unto Zidon. Verse 14. Issachar is a strong ass couching down between two burdens. And he saw that rest was good, and the land that it was pleasant, and bowed his shoulder to bear, and became a servant unto tribute. Verse 16. Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a serpent by the way, an adder in the path that biteth the horse heels, so that his rider shall fall backward. I have waited for thy salvation, O Lord. 19. God, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. 20. Out of Asher his bread shall be fat, and he shall yield royal dainties. Verse 21. Naphtali is a hind let loose. He giveth goodly words. 22. Joseph is a fruitful bough, even a fruitful bough by a well, whose branches run over the wall. The archers have sorely grieved him and shot at him and hated him. But his bow abode in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty God of Jacob. From thence is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. even by the God of thy father, who shall help thee, and by the Almighty, who shall bless thee with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that lieth under, blessings of the breasts and of the womb. The blessings of thy father have prevailed above the blessings of my progenitors unto the utmost bound of the everlasting hills. They shall be on the head of Joseph, and on the crown of the head of him that was separate from his brethren. Verse 27, Benjamin shall ravin as a wolf. In the morning he shall devour the prey, and at night he shall divide the spoil. Verse 28, all these are the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is it that their father spake about them and blessed them. Everyone according to his blessing he blessed them. And he charged them and said unto them, I am to be gathered unto my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite, in the cave that is in the field of Machpelah, which is before Mamre in the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought with the field of Ephron the Hittite for a possession of a burying place. Verse 31, there they buried Abraham and Sarah his wife. There they buried Isaac and Rebekah his wife, and there I buried Leah. The purchase of the field and of the cave that is therein was from the children of Heth. And when Jacob had made an end of commanding his sons, he gathered up his feet into the bed and yielded up the ghost and was gathered unto his people. And that brings us to the end of the reading of Genesis chapter 49. And so we are back at verse 1, and we are now going to take a closer look at Genesis chapter 49. Now, let me just say this, that I have always found this this chapter to be somewhat difficult to understand. I think this is going to be one of my weaker moments in this throughout this entire Bible study, right? Because there are still a lot of stuff I don't think I understand from Genesis chapter 49. But of course, here we are. We will just go through as the Lord leads us, right? Now, there are some things to be understood here, though, that we're going to be looking at the blessings that, or the prophecies that Jacob made over his sons. Now, it says here in verse 1 that they were to gather themselves together. So let's just quickly look back at this. So he had called in Joseph. Remember, this is in the 17th year of his sojourn in Egypt. This is when he was going to die. He knows he's going to go soon, and he calls Joseph, and he has this discussion, one-on-one discussion with Joseph. From all indications, we're not even sure that anybody else was in there, but we know he and Joseph had this conversation about what should be done to him, and he told him about this extra portion of land, because remember, he would not have gotten the inheritance until after his father had died, right? It would have been written down and everything would have been there and so on. But his father prips him and tells him that, look here, I've given you one portion above your brothers, right? Because he had always loved him. That's how the relationship he had with Joseph, even though, before he was sold into slavery. And now that they are reunited, these 17 years, he had his plans for his son also. And then now here he says, he calls the rest of his sons and he says, okay, tell your other brothers to come now and let's have a discussion. So when they come in, he tells them, I'm going to tell you what shall befall you in the last days. Now, this is not prophecy regarding the sons, but the tribes that they would become, because he's saying to them, it will befall you in the last days. So the prophecy that was made here of to Judah was not about Judah, there. It was about his son who would come later down, which of course we know is Jesus, right? Coming through the lineage of David. Remember, at this point, David is not born. David is not even thought about except in the mind of God, right? But he was far removed from the pages of the history of Israel at that particular time, right? Or the future of Israel. He was not there as yet. So that's what the background against what this is. Now, when you look at what he says, the last days, the word for last here is Beaharit, right? And the root word from which you get like last, end time, latter day, hindermost, utmost, and so on. The root word from which those words are derived is transliterated from the Hebrew to English as Achariy, and it is pronounced Aharit, Aharit, Aharit. Now, for those who are maybe new, when we talk about transliteration of a word, you take the word in its original language, in this case Hebrew, and you take each letter from the word and you translate it to its English equivalent, right? And this is what it would come out to be. Achariy, right? And as I said, how that is pronounced is Aharit, Aharit. And it means the last or end, hence the future. So he's telling him about what is going to become of your children in the future, the distant future. And if we look at it as in the latter days, to be in the time of we are, it tells about things that explain why we are seeing the society the way we are seeing it. Right? Now, you would have noticed that I have been saying from day one that, well, day one, very early up in our discussions, that a lot of what is happening in the world today, what is happening in our own society, they are just prophecies playing out, and the world will never be able to get away from it because they are prophecies, right? And God is upholding the prophecies made by Noah, and we are going to see that he upholds the prophecy made by Jacob, right? And that's why some of the reasons why the world is as it is. And we're going to learn some of these as we go along, right? So he tells them, gather together and hear, listen to me, right? And hearken unto me. Now, when I have these words in black, sorry, underlined in blue here, it just means it's the same word that is used in both instances, right? Both word, same word, but maybe a different application. So let us look at this now, what he says to them. The word that is used here is Wesimu, and it simply means hear. And it is transliterated from the Hebrew word to English as Shama. So the Hebrew word would have been made up of 5 letters. And when each of them is translated to their English equivalent, it comes out as Shama. And this now is where we get the word we say, or we hear Shama, like we'd say Jehovah Shammah, right? But the proper pronunciation is Shamach. There's a little kind of K sound at the end. Shamach, 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 right? Meaning to hear intelligently, often with the implication of attention or obedience. So he's telling them, listen carefully what I'm saying and be sure to obey, right? So this now tells us also that there was more said to these boys than is recorded here, right? But some salient points were captured. And what you're going to find is that the ones that are fleshed out, like with Reuben and Simeon and Levi and Judah, these have got detailed stories that we are, or accounts that we had looked at in Genesis. The others like Zebulun, Gad, Naphtali, nothing so spectacular was said about them. So the accounts here doesn't bring much about them either. All right, remember how God works. He writes with all of these patterns. When we see something presented A and B, we can look for it to be dealt with. A and B must be accounted for. That's how God writes. That's how he operates. He doesn't talk about something and leave the rest for you to figure out what happened to that, right? It's there. But sometimes it is just not very clear that that's what it is. All right. But as God allows us, we are going to be looking at some of these things. So that word is used when you're talking about attentively or to call together, to hear carefully, right? To give certain hearing to what is there, to listen, and those kinds of word. That comes from the root word shamach, right? Those words come from the root word shamach, meaning to hear. And so when the Lord was asked, which is the greatest commandment, he said, Shamach Israel, the Lord our God is one, right? And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy mind, with all thy soul. Right? It's the same word that was used, Shamach. Listen and obey. Listen attentively. Listen intelligently to what I am saying. This is not just to hear. All right? You hear, take heed, take note, apply, live by it, defend it with your life. That's what that word is bringing to us here. All right, so let us move past that at this point. All right. So I have a little note here. It says, after getting Joseph to swear that he would not bury him in Egypt, Jacob summons his other sons. He then speaks over their lives well into the future, not so much as individuals, but as tribes. And this was borne out as we had read. And we'll see again later down in verse 28, right? So verses 3 to 27 recounts the blessings or what was said, in summary to the sons. So let us look now, starting with Reuben. So Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity and the excellency of power. Unstable as water, thou shalt not excel. Right? Now, I know what I used to understand when I read about unstable as water, and I said it takes any shape of a container that you put it in, and you can shake it up and it just, we're going to learn all of these things, what they're talking about. So here now, Reuben is addressed first because he was the firstborn. And you're going to find that how Jacob deals with these is their birth order. Right? So he deals with them in their birth order. So if we want to know the order in which Jacob's sons were born, we can just come to Genesis chapter 49 and looks at how he addresses them. And it is in the order in which they were born. So for Reuben, he says, you are my firstborn. We understand that, my might. So when we look at the word that is used here for my might, it is Kohi. That's the Hebrew transliteration. And it's translated to my strength or my might. In the text, it's strength that is there as opposed to the word might in the text here. All right. Now, the root word from which you get the idea like ability, force, strength, might, power, substance, or so on, that root word from which those other words are derived in the Hebrew, that is transliterated to English as Koach, and it is pronounced Koah, right? Koah, with a emphasis on the H. So wherever you see me have like a double letter, double R would indicate that there should be a rolling of the tongue when you're pronouncing the R, and the H just shows that there should be a emphasis on the H. Sometimes I say a emphasis on the H, right? And it means vigor, literally force, in a good or bad sense. So that word is used in, good sense, bad sense. It's just the context in which it is being used that will give the proper meaning of the word. Or figuratively, it could be the capacity or the means or the produce. Also from its hardiness, well, we leave that part alone. And usage, ability, able, force, fruit, might, power, strength, substance, wealth. So in other words, I think what he is saying to him here, you were the proof of my ability to reproduce being the first, right? You were the one who, my trophy, so to speak, right? No matter how many would come after, there would only be one first, and you were that one. You prove it, right? That I could reproduce and carry on the name. So he's showing him where he was, right? He's showing him where he was, where he started out. And the beginning of my strength. The word here is different from the one that is used here for might, which also can be strength. But when it comes to this one here, a different word is used, right? And sometimes we have got to be careful when we see in one sentence words that seem to be meaning the same thing. Generally, they are being used to convey different ideas, right? They are being used to convey different ideas. So in this case, you see that the words are pretty much translate to the same, but they are conveying different ideas. So the one that is used here is OWNI, my strength, my strength. And the translation is OWN, and it is pronounced own, own, own. Like how you say, I own the car, pretty much the same pronunciation of this word. But in the Hebrew, own means my strength, right? And it talks about the ability or power, figuratively wealth, right? You are the beginning of my ability to reproduce. You are the beginning of my power to do, to fulfill God's word and command that says, be fruitful and multiply. You are the proof, the start of that, right? So what is he doing? He's showing him that, look here, you were on the pedestal. You were on the pedestal. The excellency of dignity. All of these words are important. So the word that is used here for excellency is Y-E-T-E-R, right? Y-E-T-E-R, and it is translated to excellency. And the root word that is in the Hebrew transliterated to English is Y-E-T-H-E-R. And that root word is the word from which we get things like abundant and exceeding and excellency and those plentiful, remnant, residue, rest, things like that. Those words come from this same root word. And that root word is pronounced yeter, 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 right? Yeter, yeter. Remember, when you see the double up of a letter, it just shows that there should be an emphasis on that letter. And so for yeter, it is yeter with a rolling of the tongue on the R. Meaning an overhanging. By implication, an excess, superiority, or remainder. Right? So that's what he was saying. He was saying, look here, you are no matter who was coming after, you were out there in the front. You were the lead. You were the superior. You had it. Had everything in your hand to gain. Anybody else come had to wait after you because you were the excellency. You were the overhang. You were the excess. So where the sons get one portion. He was due 2 portions, but he lost it. It was given to Joseph. Right? And it came to Joseph because Jacob took the 2 boys and put them in the place of Reuben and Simeon. And so they had to, as the forerunner, they had to, well, not the forerunner, being regarded now as the first and second born, they got the multitude of the blessings. Right? And here he's saying that, Reuben, you had it. You had all of that. Right? excellency, the overhanging of dignity. And for dignity, the word that is used here is S-A-E-T, and it is translated to dignity, and the root word from which you get dignity and other words like to be accepted, excellency, highness, raise up, self, or rising. Those words, the root word from which they come is transliterated from the Hebrew to English as S-E-E-T-H, and it is pronounced seit, 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 meaning an elevation, right? Figuratively, elevation or cheerfulness, exaltation in rank or character. So he was telling him, you were the over and you added excess. You had everything lined up. And excellency of power. Of course, once you see excellency repeated, it just means that it's the same word that was used, same meaning and everything. Right? So I won't bother to go back over that. And here, talking about power, it is the az, az, right? Transliterated from the Hebrew to English as az, and it is pronounced has. So it has a H sound at the beginning, right? Even though it's spelled az, it's pronounced has, like you could say, you know, he has a Bible or so on, right? Meaning strong, vehement, right? And it could also be used for, so there's another word, other words that are used that could be used to fit in here. For example, fierce, greed, might, power, roughly or strong, right? Now, I'm putting to you that the word that should be here, well, let me not say that. It spoke about same word here, and it says, and the excellency of power, right? Could be strength or vehemence and whatever. But then now it says something about him here. It says, unstable as water, thou shalt not excel. This is who you were cut out to be up here. But this is where you have ended up in verse 4. Unstable as water. You're not going to excel. Who is he talking about? Is he talking about Reuben, or as we have been told, his tribe down in the future? It's his tribe down in the future, right? This is what we were learning. What the word that his father used for the last days is talking about future. And we are in the future. Is Israel disassembled that they don't exist? No, they exist. We exist. And therefore, that was spoken about Reuben's children explains what is happening to some of us today. Right? And it's going to be so until Jesus comes back. So let us look at some of these. He says they are unstable as water. So when I looked up the word for unstable here, right, I was in for a surprise. The word that is used in the text is P-A-H-A-Z, and it means unstable as water, right? And you'll see me put something there that says as boiling water, because that's what it is, right? But we're going to come back to that a little bit. So the root word from which we get things, well, the unstable comes, in the Hebrew, it is translated or transliterated to English as P-A-C-H-A-Z, and it is pronounced pahaz, 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 meaning an ebullition, right? That is froth or the action of bubbling or boiling. Figuratively, it talks about lust, right? So what is it saying? He says he was like boiling water, unstable. In other words, if you think about the bubbling of water, it goes up and it comes down, up and down. That's what his father said about him. You're like boiling water. You're up 1 minute, then you come down. And so you just keep going on. Nobody can figure you out. You just internalize and you just explode. Right? And this is exactly why he lost his birthright. Right? Because of his instability. So let us look at that a little bit. He says, thou shalt not excel. You're not going to excel in the future. You're not going to excel, Reuben. And how many of us can identify maybe in our own self some of these kinds of characteristics where we are like boiling water, we just keep going on there, we just explode and mash up Dali and we, you know. Some of these are coming from way back then in prophecy. Your children will not excel. Going to just be like boiling water, just bubbling over and just spoil things. And why is that so? Because you went up to your father's bed, right? So the word here for bed is miskebe, transliterated from the Hebrew to English. The root word is mishkab, and that is the root word from which we get things like bed chamber, couch, lieth, lying down, lie with, and so on. Those words come from the same root word, and it is pronounced mishkav, 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 because in the Hebrew, B is generally not pronounced as a B, but more as a V. So you don't get Abraham, you get Avraham, right? You get Avraham, and so on. So that's just one example. And it talks about a bed, figuratively a bear, like something that they'd carry a dead person on, abstractly sleep, or by euphemism, carnal intercourse. So that's what he's saying, right? You went up to my bed. You went to have sex with one of my wives. This is what he's saying to his son. This is why you are not going to excel. You're like boiling water. Look at everything you had. And you never thought that you could come and talk to me about what was bothering you and, you know, me and your mother, right? Because remember how Reuben got to go sleep with Bilhah. His father had made a comment referring to Bilhah as Joseph's mother. Joseph and Reuben took offense to it, and nobody realized, and he just internalized it until he exploded and just got rape her and said, "You're not going to disrespect my mother, right? You are just a concubine who came up, and my mother is first wife, and he has always rejected my mother for her sister, Rachel, well, Rebecca, and now Rachel, and now you want to come and take over." He said it will never happen. And to make sure it never happened, he went and raped her. That's how Reuben slept with Bilhah. The Bible tells us slept with, but you notice the same word that is used here. His father is using it back here, but it just polishes it out and say he went up to your father's bed. But he went and he had forced sex with Bilhah. So his father would have to not ever go back there. Right? And his father is saying to him here, look at what you did. You had all of this and you throw it away. You never even come and talk to me. You're just like, you're unstable. Can't just entrust the family thing to you. What will you do when your head take you? Right? And how many of us today know somebody who, man, when they head chipped, they just do some really crazy things, you know? And sometimes, truth be told, we even do it ourselves. Right? Then defilest thou it. And the word here for defile is Hillalta, defiled, and the root word from which you get word like defile, to break up, to stain, to wound, to pollute, you know, to prostitute. That root word from which you get those kinds of word, it is transliterated from the Hebrew to English as Chal. And that is pronounced halal. Halal. Again, the H being double there shows that there should be an emphasis on the H. So it's halal, halal, halal. Meaning properly to bore, and by implication to wound, to dissolve, figuratively to profane a person, place, or thing. So we see that he profaned Bilhah. That is the word that his father uses. I'm not me making it up, right? Based on the context of the conversation, you have to choose which word best suit here. It could not be prostitute, right? He profaned it, right? He dissolved it, he defiled it, he just ruined everything. He made sure his father could not go back there, right? He went up to my couch. You can imagine that maybe some other things were said, but this is all that we are given. And it just tells where he's coming from and the fact that his children in the future would not excel. So when we find some persons can't excel, they just reach thus far and can't go anymore. And no matter how you pray for them, they can't. Chances are they may, I'm not saying that they are, and I wanted to pay attention now because remember I told you when we were starting out the discussion that this I'm not 100% because some of the things here is not altogether clear, right? So I can't speak very definitively to some of these things, but based on what is said, we know that these things are going to apply to his children in the future. How far down from him, I don't know. We were not given that. We were just told that it is going to happen in the future, and we are in the future. And some of us in Jamaica and maybe even on this call are descendants of one of these 12 brothers. Right? We won't go into the details about how we would account for that. But let me tell you, as I said, a lot of what is happening in the world today goes right back to the Bible, right back to this day when Jacob was saying this, right back to the day when Noah woke up and heard that his son Ham had embarrassed him, right? And he pronounced and made a prophecy about his three sons. Then, from then, some of what is happening today was established, and it can never change until Jesus comes. Right? Never. That is the power of prophecy. So then he moves on. Then he moves on from Reuben, and he now addresses Simeon and Levi. Right? And here they are referred to in their birth order. Simeon was born before Levi. So it's Simeon, it's Reuben, Simeon, Levi. Right? And he addresses them same way. But he deals with both of them together because the two of them, he says, cut off of the same cloth. They are indeed brothers. They are like twins. Right? In their behavior, mannerism. He says, Simeon and Levi, they are brothers. You can't get away from that. They are one, two peas in a pod. Very dangerous. And he says the instruments of cruelty are in their habitations. These are boys who it wouldn't take anything out of them when they were young. And if the father wanted a chicken to be killed, they are the ones putting up their hand and saying, we will kill it. Right? They had no qualms about shedding blood, these two brothers. And their father knew it about them from them little. Right? Certainly, if he never knew about it, he found out the day when Shechem raped their sister, and they decided that they were going to fix Shechem's business, right? And that's what the father is talking about here now, or was talking about here, right? He says the instruments of cruelty are in their habitations, and the word for instruments here in the text, it is K-E-L-E, translated to instruments, and the root word from which you get words like armor, artillery, instruments, furniture, carriage, jewel, and so on. That root word is transliterated from the Hebrew to English as K-E-L-I-Y, and it is pronounced Keli, 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 meaning something prepared, right? Any apparatus as an implement, utensil, dress, vessel, or weapon. So this is what their father was saying, right? Weapons of cruelty or tools of cruelty are in their habitations. That's they have it. You want to know how to do something wicked to somebody, you check these two brothers. They have the right recipe to give you. right? They know exactly how to hurt somebody and make it hurt hard. These two boys, right? These two boys, very dangerous. So the word that is used in the text for cruelty is Hamas, translated to cruelty, and the root word from which you get cruelty, cruel, damage, false, injustice, oppressor, unrighteous, violence, and so on. The root word from which those words come, it is transliterated from the Hebrew to English as Chamac, and it is pronounced Hamas, 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 Hamas. Like how you hear they say, Israel fighting against Hamas, right? It's pretty much the same way it is pronounced, Hamas, Hamas, meaning violence, and by implication, wrong, right? Unjust or unjust gain. And as I said earlier, it's the same word from which you get other words like cruelty, damage, violence, and so on. So he's telling them that the tools of violence and injustice and anything, you will find it with these brothers. You just want to know how to deal with somebody who wrong you, check these two brothers, and they will have the recipe to give you, right? You won't have to worry too much about that.
Good night. Good night. Good afternoon. Night.
You won't have to search very far. They will have a remedy to give you. Right. So he says that these two brothers have got it locked pot, right? When it comes to doing people cruel things. And then now he goes on in verse 6 and he says, "Oh, my soul, do not come into their secret. Don't you sit down with them to plan anything. These boys are dangerous, right? Don't come unto their assembly. Mine honor, be not thou united. You don't sit down with them to plot." And when he's talking about his honor here, I believe he's talking about his other sons. He's saying, "My children, be careful of your two brothers. When you hear them planning to do evil, you don't join with them. Because those two boys, hey, right? Very dangerous boys they are." So let us look now. The secret here is BESODAM. And it talks about their counsel. When they sit down and plan, it says, don't you join with them, right? The root word from which you get these words like assemble, council, inward, or secret council, and so on. The root word that you get those words coming from is transliterated from the Hebrew to English as COWD, and it is pronounced sowed, almost like you say you sowed, some seed in the garden, or you sewed a shirt or something. Sowed, meaning a session, company of persons in close deliberation. So in other words, it's the same thing it is saying. Where you see them sit down and start knocking and plan, you don't go nowhere near them. Stay away from them, right? Unto their assembly, my honor, you don't come there. So I believe, as I said, I think the honor here is his other sons. He's telling his other sons, don't you join with your brothers. These two brothers, no. You don't join with them because they are dangerous. Right? When you see them sitting down and planning, you don't go nowhere near them. Leave them alone. And then he goes on now and he says, for in their anger, they slew a man. Right? And we have to understand these concepts, when you talk about a man. The Bible tells us that it wasn't just Shechem that they killed, but they killed Hamor. And not only Hamor, but they killed off all the men in the city of Shechem. Right? So it wasn't here talking about a single man that was killed. And this is important that we understand this concept, because sometimes when we hear in the Bible, especially when we hear in prophecy, and prophecies like Revelation, and we hear talk about a man, and we figure that it is just one man. It's not a man. It's a nation that it is talking about. They killed out an entire nation. And I'm going to explain to you how this is. Because remember, when we are talking about Jacob, we are talking about Israel. Israel is a man. This is where he started. But today, Israel, when we talk about Israel, we are not talking about the man. We are talking about a nation. It's a man who became a nation, or a nation that grew out of a man. Right? And this is what we are seeing happening here. It says, for in their anger, they slew a man, and in their self-will, they dig down a wall. So let us look at what words are used here for us to understand what the Bible is saying. Right? So the first thing, let us look at anger. The word that is used here in the text is B-E-A-P-P-A-M, and it is transliterated to their anger. Right? Now, the root word from which you get anger and to forbear and before and to suffer and wrath and so on, those kinds of words, the root word from which those are derived, that root word is transliterated from Hebrew to English as APH, and it is pronounced af, 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 meaning properly the nose or nostril, hence the face, and occasionally a person. Also, right, from the rapid breathing in passion, R. So I talk about, man, something happened and them does. Yes, that's what it is talking about when it uses this and saying their anger. They never give thought. Them just, watch me on him. And they just round and round and says, in their unbridled passion, without thinking, they slew a man. They murdered, it annihilated an entire bloodline out of history. This is what they did. And that's why it was so dangerous. Not that they killed a man. If they had just killed Shechem or Amor or both of them, it would be bad and not so bad, because Amor had other sons. Them kill all of the sons. Them kill Amor. Them kill Amor brother them. They kill everybody out of him family. So nobody could raise up a child to Amor. Nobody, none of Shechem's brothers could raise up a child and say, this one is to keep Shechem's name alive. They erased the entire family. They left no male alive out of Shechem and Amor's bloodline. They killed Shechem, they killed Amor, they killed Amor's brother, they killed Shechem's brothers, they just killed out the whole family. And that is why what they did was so wicked. Right? And when they did that, they left their sister, Dinah, without a husband. Right? They left her without a husband. And we learned later that she had a child. Right? So that child now just without a father, just what I am telling you. And their father wasn't amused by their actions. So they slew a man. And the word for slew here, in the text, the word that is used is H-A-R-E-G-U, and it means slew. And the root word from which you get destroy, out of hand, to kill, to murder, to put to death, to make slaughter, to slay, the slayer, all of those words, the root word from which they are derived, comes from the Hebrew as H-A-R-A-G. That's what it's transliterated to in English, and it is pronounced harag, 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 meaning to smite with deadly intent. Right? So what did they do? They killed him, right, with deadly intent. Their intent was to destroy him out of history. That's what they did, right? So a man, the term a man as used here is referring to an entire bloodline. They erased Hamor's bloodline from history. Right? They erased it. They rubbed them out totally. And it says, and in their self-will. So the self-will here, the word that is used is Ubirson, translated to self-will, and the root word from which you get like self-will, delight, desire, favor, pleasure, will, and so on. That root word from which those derive, that word is transliterated from the Hebrew to English as Ratson, and it is pronounced ratson, meaning delight, especially as shown, meaning it is out. So they were very happy at what they did. And they said, woo, you see what we do with the boy? Yes, man, set him good. Both him come rape his sister. Yes, man, and him go on. And the Bible gave us this insight when it says, when their father spoke to them, they said, should he have dealt with our sister as with an harlot? That's what it is saying. Them say, yes, fix him business. It serve him right. Him think our sister harlot, yeah? Them not think about the fact that he could have married their sister and their not the ideal situation, but their niece would now have had a father, and maybe she would have had other children, and just never know how the future would have worked out. Because his father, who was a reasonable man, his father never agreed with what he did, but his father came to have a good discussion to try, as best as possible, address the situation. But what did they do? They gave the impression that they were, yes, man, we can work out something, man. And that time they are planning murder in their mind. And a plan, and I said, we're not only killing the son, we're going to kill the father, and as a matter of fact, we're going to make sure that we kill all of his family. Get rid of them off of the face of the earth. And they felt justified by that. This is what the word self-will is telling us. That they had pleasure in doing it. Them say, yes, man, that is what we need for do, man. Yes. It says, in their thinking like that, they dig down a wall. Now, the wording that is used here is not found in any other text, right? And even in the text that I looked at, it's not the wording that is there. They dig down a wall is not there. The wording that is found in the New King James Version and other translations say they hamstrung an ox. Right? Hamstrung an ox. And the word that is used in the text is IQQERU, meaning they hamstrung. And the root word, the root word is the word from which you get like dig down, which is what we saw here, right? Huff, to pluck up or to root up. The translators, when they were translating the Bible, they chose dig down. But based on our understanding, I more go with rooted up, because that's what they did. They pull out the whole of Amor's bloodline. They rub him out totally, pull him out by the roots. He had nothing left when they were done with them. No male to carry on the name. They killed everything. So the root word is transliterated from Hebrew to English as AQAR, and it is pronounced hakar, meaning to pluck up, especially by the roots. So this is, all right, I know that hand that soon come to you. So this is what we are to understand here, right? That in their pleasure, that they felt it okay to totally eradicate an entire line of people from the history books. They felt it was okay to do that, right? They destroyed the house of Amor, which is his bloodline. They totally destroyed it, pluck it up by the root, totally mash it up, get rid of them out of history, right? And it says, cursed be their anger, right? Is their own father said that, cursed be their anger, for it was fierce, wicked, unconscionable that they should do that, and their wrath, for it was cruel. And if you look at the word wrath here, I'm coming, I remember the and just give me a minute. The word in the text, ebratam, their wrath, and the root word from which we get anger, rage, wrath, that root word is transliterated from the Hebrew to English as ebrah, and it is pronounced evra, evra, evra. Remember, the B in the Hebrew is pronounced as a V. Evra, evra, meaning an outburst of passion. So they were stewing with anger and then plan and then plan and plan. And then we see that they just. So we see the difference between wrath and anger. Anger is more internalized than plan and drive. But the wrath now is the outburst and they just went with the sword and just start kill. They're not, even the little baby, they just, every male, they just kill, and wouldn't stop until everybody, all the male in the city was dead. When they were finished with the people, them man, others who saw them when they were leaving, afraid to even go near them. Because them said, man, those guys, they don't take prisoner. They don't take talk. Right? All right. All right, we're gonna be rounding off. I'm just gonna finish up the look here at Simeon and Levi, and we call that it for today. So their father says, "Cursed be their anger, for it was fierce, and their wrath, for it was cruel." Right? And again, if we look at the word for cruel here, the word that is used in the text is Qasatah, translated to cruel, and the root word from which you get cruel or fierce or to make grievous or to seem hard, and stiff or stiff-necked. That root word from which those words are derived is transliterated to English as Qashah, and it is pronounced kasha, kasha, like when we say kashamaka, right? Yeah, kasha, kasha. Similar way it is pronounced. And it means properly to be dense or tough or severe, right? Or cruel. And that's what their father was saying. Their wrath, when they had that outburst, it was wicked. They went overboard. That never had to do what they did, but they went and they totally rubbed out an entire lineage of people out of the history books of this world. Right? On that day. They just ended that bloodline. Done. And he says, because they are like that when they are together, he says, I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. They won't be allowed to continue in the future. They won't be allowed to stay together. Even when they are together in Israel. It's not going to make them side by side. These two boys, no, sir. Can't make their children stay together. They are too dangerous. And remember, it's not only talking now about these men, talking about their children. And so we find that Levi was scattered in Israel because they never got a possession. They were eventually, that bloodline was eventually chosen to be the priests before God. And their possession, what they had as their inheritance, was the portion of the tithes and offerings that were brought in from the rest of the tribes. That was what they had. But in terms of a place, no. They had to be scattered. He scattered them, gave them different cities throughout all the tribes. That means every tribe had Levites living among them. And by doing that, he was able to scatter them, right? Scatter them throughout Israel. Now, where Simeon was concerned, Simeon never had a place by themselves. Their possession was inside of Judah's possession. Right? So it is Judah had this big land, and then they cut out a part of the land inside Judah and put Simeon inside there. So we find that when the break of the kingdom took place, it was Judah, Simeon, Benjamin, right? And I think some of the children of some of the other tribes who were living in Jerusalem, they stuck with the house of David, right? A great portion of them. And that account is found in 2nd Chronicles 15, all right? Tells us that how a lot of them stayed with Judah. So he's going to scatter them, right? And that's how they were scattered, just as the prophecy was made. But was that only for their time? Maybe not. Look at it also. Where are these people today? Where are the Jews? We read the Bible and we talk about the Jews, them, the Jews who did that to Jesus. Where are these people today? Have they just disappeared, just vanished and gone out of history and never? No, they are very much in existence today, right? Some of us on this call are the descendants of these people. And this helps us to understand some of what we see happening in our society and among ourselves. All of us don't come out of the same family. We are out, and in many instances, some we are out of these 12 sons. And the prophecies that are made about them here impacts us. So you have some people, they try to, they move forward, but they just can't seem to ever reach there. Why? Could be that they are out of Reuben. Their father did something and the prophecy was made that in the future your children are not going to excel. They will come near, but they're not excelling. You may find a 1 or 2, God, just allow 1 or 2 to bust through the gate. But generally, not going anywhere. All right? And we're going to learn more about this Simeon and Levi. You may just find that they just can't stay one, they have to just travel out, they have to just keep going, because that's how they have the prophecy of them. They have to just keep moving because they can't make them stay together. Make them stay together. Problem. All right? Problems. All right, that's going to bring us to the end of our Bible study for today. Are there any questions or comments?